Imagine working in your office, focusing on your job, completely absorbed in spreadsheets and client calls, when your phone rings. You glance at the screen and see an unknown number. You almost ignore it, but something makes you answer. And in that moment, with one phone call, your entire life changes. It's not someone telling you that you've won the lottery. It's not a surprise inheritance. It's not good news at all. It's a stranger's voice saying words that shatter everything you thought you knew. Your husband destroyed my marriage, and now he's hired my ex-wife as your nanny. Hi, I'm Olivia Paulson, and this is the story of how one phone call destroyed my marriage, exposed the woman I trusted with my daughter, and revealed a betrayal so calculated, so deliberate, that I'm still processing it months later. This is my story. So, let me tell you about my life before that phone call. I'm 35 years old, and I live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I've been married to my husband Clyde for 8 years, and we have a beautiful daughter named Rosie, who's 6 years old, in first grade, and the light of my life. I live in my childhood home, the house my parents left me when they passed away 15 years ago. They'd worked for 30 years to pay it off, and when they died, they left it to me completely debt-free. It was my inheritance, my security, my foundation. My parents had made sure both their children had homes. They'd bought my older brother Jake and his wife Daria a house as a wedding gift, and they'd left me our family home. They wanted us to have stability and never worry about losing our homes. A year ago, I got promoted to regional sales director at the agricultural tech company I work for. It was a huge promotion. A dream job, really. The pay was incredible, $180,000 a year. With that income, I could finally do everything I'd always wanted. Pay all our bills, save for Rosie's college education, and build a comfortable life for our family. My husband Clyde works from home, running his own business as a freelance graphic designer. He's talented and creative, and he's been trying to build his client base for the past few years. The money isn't great yet. He makes about $45,000 a year, which isn't bad, but it's not enough to support our family on its own. So I became the primary breadwinner, and I was okay with that. I loved my job, I was good at it, and I believed in supporting my husband's dreams. The arrangement worked well at first. Clyde worked from home, so he was there when Rosie got home from school. He'd help with homework, make her snacks, and play with her in the backyard. It seemed perfect. But then my job got more demanding. The promotion came with longer hours and more responsibility. I was leaving the house at 7 in the morning, and sometimes not getting home until 7 at night. I felt guilty about missing bedtime stories, missing school events, missing moments with my daughter. One evening, about 6 months ago, Clyde sat me down and said, "Liv, I think we need to hire a nanny." I was surprised and asked him, "A nanny? Why?" He explained, "Because I can't keep dropping everything to take care of Rosie. I have client calls, deadlines, projects, and you're working so much now. We need help." He was right. I was stretched too thin, and Clyde was trying to grow his business. It made sense. I asked him, "Do you know anyone?" "Actually, yes," he said. "Someone recommended Melanie. She used to be a kindergarten teacher, but she left teaching after her divorce." "Why did she leave teaching?" I asked. "She said her ex-husband was a cheater," Clyde explained. "The divorce was messy. She didn't want to be in that environment anymore, dealing with parents and families when her own family had just fallen apart." My heart went out to her. A divorced woman, betrayed by her husband, trying to start over. And she had teaching experience, which meant she'd be perfect for Rosie. We set up an interview, and Melanie came to the house the following Saturday. She was younger than I expected, maybe 29, with a warm smile and bubbly personality. She was great with Rosie immediately, and they played together and laughed together. Rosie loved her from the start. At the end of the interview, Melanie said, "I'd love to work with your family. Rosie is wonderful, and I miss being around kids." Teaching was my passion. I asked gently, "Why did you really leave teaching?" Her face fell as she explained, "My ex-husband cheated on me. The divorce was ugly. I needed a fresh start, away from that world." I believed her, every word of it. "The job is yours," I told her. She started the following Monday, and for months, everything seemed perfect. Melanie was amazing with Rosie. She picked her up from school, helped with homework, made healthy snacks, and took her to the park. She even started cooking dinner for the family a few nights a week. I told her, "You don't have to do that." But she insisted, "I want to. You're working so hard. I'm happy to help." I was grateful and relieved. My daughter was in good hands. My husband could focus on his work, and I could focus on mine. I trusted her completely. I had no idea what was really happening in my house. It was a Tuesday morning when I was at my desk reviewing a client proposal, and my phone rang. It was an unknown number, and I almost sent it to voicemail, but I was expecting a call from a potential client, so I answered. "This is Olivia," I said. A man's voice came through the line, tense with controlled anger beneath the surface. "Is this Olivia Paulson?" "Yes. Who's calling?" I asked. "My name is Derek Matthews," he said. "You don't know me, but we need to talk. It's about your nanny, Melanie, and your husband, Clyde." My stomach dropped as I asked, "What about them?" "Melanie is my ex-wife," Derek said, "and she's been having an affair with your husband for the past 18 months. The room tilted around me, and I gripped the edge of my desk. "That's not possible," I said. "You must have the wrong person." Derek interrupted me. "They met at the gym, LA Fitness on 41st Street, 18 months ago. It started with coffee after her spin class, then hotels. I have proof, Mrs. Paulson. Photos, dates, receipts. My private investigator documented everything." I couldn't breathe as I asked, "Why are you calling me?" His voice cracked with anger as he explained, "Because 6 months ago I sued your husband for alienation of affection. In South Dakota that's legal. He paid me $75,000 to settle it. And then he hired my ex-wife as your nanny. She's living in your house, taking care of your daughter, playing mother while you're at work. And I realized you have no idea." I thought I might be sick. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" I asked. "I'll send you everything," Derek said. "The private investigator's report, photos, hotel receipts, text messages, settlement documents, all of it. Just tell me where to send it." My hands shook as I gave him my office address. "I'm sending it FedEx," Derek said. "It'll arrive Thursday, 2 days from now." "And Mrs. Paulson? I'm sorry. I know what it's like to find out this way. But you deserve to know the truth. If you need to confirm anything, my lawyer's number is in the package, and the private investigator's number too. They'll verify everything." The call ended, and I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen, unable to focus on anything. My husband, my nanny, an affair that had lasted 18 months, $75,000. It couldn't be true. But why would this man lie? I couldn't work for the rest of that day. I couldn't think or breathe properly. That night, I went home and acted normal. I smiled at Clyde and thanked Melanie for the dinner she'd made. And after everyone was asleep, I sat in the dark with my laptop and started searching. First, I looked for Melanie on Instagram and found her profile, which was public. My heart sank as I scrolled through her posts. The past 6 months of her posts were like looking at my life through someone else's eyes. Photos of Melanie with Rosie, dozens of them. At the zoo, she captioned, "Best Saturdays." Baking in my kitchen, making memories with my favorite girl. At the park, happiest when I'm with these two. People commented asking, "Is that your daughter? She's beautiful." And Melanie responded, "Might as well be." I scrolled further back and found posts from over a year ago showing a different house and a different life. Some photos included a man who I assumed was Derek. Then the post stopped for a few months. The divorce period, I realized. When they started again, it was a new city and a new life, and suddenly my daughter appeared in every photo. I zoomed in on one image of Melanie and Rosie in our living room playing a board game, and in the background, barely visible, was a man's hand wearing a watch. I recognized that watch because I'd bought it for Clyde 3 Christmases ago. Thursday morning, the package arrived and I signed for it at reception before carrying it to my office with shaking hands. I locked my door and opened it to find a folder containing 94 pages. The cover read, "Private Investigation Report, Subject, Melanie Matthews and Clyde Paulson. Investigation period, March 15 to April 30. Conclusion, subjects engaged in ongoing extramarital affair." I turned the page and found photos. Clyde and Melanie entering a hotel called the Riverside Inn on March 18th at 2:47 p.m., then exiting the same hotel at 6:23 p.m. There were more photos of them kissing in a parking lot after hours, in an empty lot at the elementary school where Melanie used to teach, and even more photos from different hotels on different dates, showing them holding hands at a cafe and embracing in a car. Then I reached the text messages. Screenshots recovered from Melanie's iPad during her divorce. On March 20th, Melanie had written, "I hate lying to Derek, but I hate being without you more." Clyde had responded, "Soon, babe. Working on my exit strategy." On April 10th, Melanie wrote, "I think I'm gonna ask Derek for a divorce." Clyde replied, "You sure? We talked about waiting." Melanie answered, "I can't do this anymore. I want to be with you. I want to be Rosie's mom." I stopped reading and put the folder down, trying to breathe, but I couldn't stop myself from continuing. On April 22nd, Clyde had written, "Had a thought. What if after your divorce, you get hired as our nanny?" Melanie responded, "What? How?" Clyde explained, "Olivia just got promoted. We'll need childcare. I find you through a recommendation. You're perfect. Teacher, great with kids. You get into the house, bond with Rosie. When I file for divorce, you're the obvious maternal figure." Melanie replied, "That's actually genius." Clyde agreed, "I know." They'd planned this from the beginning. The nanny job wasn't a coincidence, but a calculated move. I kept reading and found the settlement agreement. Derek Matthews vs. Clyde Paulson, alienation of affection, settlement amount, $75,000, payment date, September 10th. Clipped to the back was a handwritten note from Derek that read, "Olivia, I'm sorry you're finding out this way. Everything in this folder is true. My lawyer's number and the PI's number are included if you want to verify. Your husband paid me $75,000 to settle my lawsuit. He also paid Melanie's alimony and living expenses for months after our divorce, probably another $12,000. He spent nearly $90,000 of his savings on this affair. I'm telling you because you deserve to know, and because they deserve consequences. If you take legal action, I'll testify. I'll be your witness. Derek." I closed the folder and walked to my boss's office to tell her, "I need time off. Family emergency." She looked at my face and didn't ask questions, simply saying, "Take the week." I walked to my car and broke down, crying for 10 minutes or maybe longer. Obviously, I didn't know about this. I never saw a sign that he was cheating, no subpoena, nothing. Clyde did a good job hiding this from me. Then I pulled myself together because I needed to know the truth. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I pulled out my phone and searched nanny cams near me. That Saturday, Clyde announced that he had a client meeting in another city and would be gone all day from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. It was perfect timing. I told him I was taking Rosie to my brother's house for a playdate with her cousins. "Great," he said. "I'll see you both tonight." I dropped Rosie at Jake and Daria's house, then drove to Target and bought 5 nanny cams, small cameras disguised as everyday objects. I bought a clock for the bedroom, a phone charger for the kitchen, a picture frame for the living room, an air freshener for the home office, and a smoke detector for the hallway. All of them were motion activated, connected to an app on my phone, and saved everything to cloud storage. I went home and spent 2 hours installing them, testing each angle and making sure nothing looked out of place. Then I picked up Rosie and went home, and when Clyde came back that evening, looking satisfied, I asked, "How was the meeting?" "Great," he said enthusiastically. "I think I landed the contract." But I knew he was lying. Monday through Friday, I watched the footage, and every day at lunch, I'd sit in my car and open the app. On Monday at 8:30 a.m., Rosie left for school, and at 8:45 a.m., the kitchen camera caught Clyde and Melanie making coffee together with his hand on her waist as she leaned into him before they kissed, long and familiar, like they'd done it 1,000 times. I sat in my car in the office parking lot watching my husband kiss another woman in my kitchen, and my hands shook so hard I could barely hold the phone. On Tuesday at 9:15 a.m., the bedroom camera showed something I didn't want to watch but had to know about. They were in my bed. My childhood bed. The bed my mother had made every morning when I was growing up. I watched for 30 seconds, saved the footage, closed the app, and sat in my car crying. On Wednesday at 11 a.m., the living room audio picked up Melanie saying, "I can't wait to redecorate this place. Get rid of all her boring beige everything. Make it ours." Clyde laughed and said, "Soon, babe. Just a few more months. Once I file for divorce and get custody of Rosie, we sell the house and start fresh. New place, new life, just us." Melanie asked, "Do you think the judge will give you custody?" Clyde replied confidently, "With you as the stable parental figure, the one who's been taking care of Rosie while Olivia works 60 hours a week? Absolutely. Any judge will see you're the better option." They were talking about stealing my house, the house my parents had left me. I saved the audio and added it to my evidence folder. On Thursday, Melanie was cooking dinner in my kitchen, wearing my apron and using my pots and pans like they were hers, humming happily while Clyde came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist and said, "Love you, babe." She replied, "Love you too." They were saying this in my kitchen, in my house. On Friday at 2:45 p.m., Rosie came home from school and asked, "When is Mommy coming home?" Melanie answered, "In a couple hours, sweetie. But don't you have more fun with me anyway?" Rosie said quietly, "I guess." That moment broke me more than all the rest. By Friday, I had hours of footage, undeniable proof of the affair, of them planning to take my house, and of Melanie deliberately positioning herself as Rosie's better mother. I sat in my car staring at the evidence. Part of me wondered if I should try to save this. We'd been married 8 years. We had a daughter. But then I thought about what I'd just watched. Them in my kitchen, my parents' kitchen, using their house like it was theirs while I paid all the bills. How dare they disrespect me like this? They'd planned this, calculated it, executed it in my home while I worked 60-hour weeks. Could I forgive that? Did I even want to? I thought about what kind of example I'd be setting for Rosie if I stayed. No, my parents worked too hard for this house. Rosie deserved better. I deserved better. I wasn't going to save this marriage. I was going to end it. I called the lawyer whose number Derek had included. "Mr. Mitchell, my name is Olivia Paulson. Derek Matthews gave me your number." He replied, "Mrs. Paulson, I've been expecting your call." "Is everything in that report true?" I asked. "Yes, ma'am. Your husband settled with my client for $75,000. I need a lawyer. Can you represent me?" "I can't due to conflict of interest, but I can refer you to an excellent divorce attorney named Marie Walker. With your permission, I'll brief her on everything." "Please, I can meet with her Monday." "I'll call her today. She'll reach out within the hour." 30 minutes later, Marie Walker called. "Mrs. Paulson? Can you come to my office Monday morning at 9 a.m.? "I'll be there." Monday morning, I sat across from Marie Walker with everything I'd gathered, my laptop with the nanny cam footage, Derek's PI report, screenshots of Melanie's Instagram, and my work calendar. Marie reviewed it all and said, "This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've ever seen." "What do I do?" I asked. "We file for divorce on grounds of adultery," she explained. "South Dakota has a 60-day waiting period. We also file for emergency custody of Rosie, child support, and exclusive possession of your home. Separately, we sue Melanie for alienation of affection, $125,000. "She doesn't have that kind of money," I pointed out. "No, but a judgment follows her, wage garnishment, ruined credit. She'll be paying it off for years. It's about accountability." "How long until they're served?" 3 weeks. I need time to prepare everything. "But Olivia, you need to keep acting normal until then. Can you do that?" I thought about 3 weeks of pretending, of smiling at them in my house. "For Rosie," I said. "Yes." Marie handed me her card. "When they're served, Clyde has 48 hours to leave, and the restraining order against Melanie goes into effect immediately." I thanked her and left, and for the next 3 weeks, I became an actress. Those were the hardest 3 weeks of my life. Going home every evening, smiling at Clyde, thanking Melanie for dinner, watching her play with Rosie and tuck my daughter into bed some nights when I worked late, watching her slowly replace me while saying nothing. Every night I'd see them in my kitchen, the kitchen where my mother had taught me to bake cookies, where my father had helped me with homework at the table, where my family had gathered for decades. And now, Clyde and Melanie were using it like it was theirs. Cooking together, laughing together, planning their future together in my parents' house. Some nights after everyone was asleep, I'd walk through the rooms of my childhood home and remember what my parents had sacrificed to give me this security. I'd think about my mother scrubbing floors to save money for the mortgage payment, my father working double shifts so they could pay it off early. They'd wanted me to always have a safe place, a foundation, a home. And Clyde had tried to take it from me, had planned to sell it, split the money, and move on with his mistress, like my parents' sacrifice meant nothing. Those nights, I'd lock myself in the bathroom and cry. Not because I was sad about losing Clyde, but because I was angry. Angry that he'd disrespected my parents' memory. Angry that he'd brought another woman into their home. Angry that he'd let Melanie play house in my mother's kitchen. But every morning, I'd get up, wash my face, put on makeup, and smile, because I knew it would be worth it. I knew that in 3 weeks, I'd have my house back, my daughter back, my life back, and they would both finally face the consequences of what they'd done. 3 weeks later, Marie called and said, "Everything's filed. The process servers will deliver papers Thursday morning at 9 a.m. "To the house?" I asked. "Yes, both of them at the same time," she confirmed. My heart raced as I asked, "What should I do?" She advised, "Be somewhere safe. Don't be there when it happens." But I wanted to be there because I needed to see their faces. Thursday morning at 8 a.m., I made Rosie breakfast like normal, and told her, "Sweetie, you're spending the day at Uncle Jake's today." She said excitedly, "Yay! Can I play with my cousins?" "All day," I confirmed. Clyde came downstairs and asked, "Oh, Rosie's going to Jake's?" I explained, "Yeah, Daria asked if she could come over. I'll drop her off before work." "Okay," he said. "Have a good day." He kissed me on the cheek and I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled and said, "You too." I drove Rosie to Jake and Daria's house, the house our parents had bought them as a wedding gift, and Rosie ran inside to play while Jake came outside and took one look at my face. "Today?" he asked. I nodded and said, 9 a.m., both of them. Daria appeared and asked, "You're going back there?" "I need to be there," I said. She insisted, "Then Jake's going with you." "Daria," I started to protest. "No arguments," she said firmly. "You're not facing them alone." Jake grabbed his keys and said, "Let's go." At 8:57 a.m., we arrived at my house and parked down the street before walking to the front door, and my hands shook as I unlocked it. Jake squeezed my shoulder and asked, "You ready?" "I need to see this," I said. We stepped inside and heard voices from the living room along with laughter, which made my stomach turn. I walked down the hallway with Jake behind me and entered the living room to find Clyde and Melanie on the couch with his arm around her and her head on his shoulder, comfortable and intimate in my house on my parents' couch, looking like a couple who belonged there. Then Clyde looked up and saw me, then saw Jake, and his face went white as he scrambled up and pushed Melanie away, stammering, "Liv, I thought you were at work." Melanie stood too, backing away as she saw Jake's expression and started shaking. Jake stepped forward and said, "You've got to be kidding me. In her house? On her couch?" Clyde held up his hands defensively and said, "Jake, this isn't..." "Isn't what?" Jake demanded. "You with your mistress in my sister's living room?" I stood silent, just watching them. Melanie couldn't look at me as she said, "Olivia, Don't," I said, my voice ice cold. "Don't say a word." Jake moved closer to Clyde, who backed up nervously. Clyde tried again. "Jake, man, I'm not your man," Jake said coldly. "Jake," I said quietly. "I won't hit him," Jake said, his fists clenched. "I promised, but I want to." At exactly 9 a.m., the doorbell rang and everyone froze. I walked to the door and opened it to find 2 process servers standing there. "Mrs. Paulson?" one of them asked. "That's me," I confirmed. "We're here to serve Clyde Paulson and Melanie Matthews," he explained. "They're both here," I said. "Come in." The servers entered and I led them to the living room. The first server asked, "Clyde Paulson?" "Yes," Clyde replied nervously. "You've been served," the server said, handing him an envelope. The second server looked at Melanie and asked, "Melanie Matthews?" She nodded, trembling. "You've been served," he said, handing her an envelope. The servers left and the door closed, leaving us in silence. Clyde stared at his envelope and asked, "Olivia, what is this?" "Open it," I said. He did, and read, "Complaint for divorce." His face drained of color. Melanie opened hers and saw, "Complaint for alienation of affection." "You're suing me?" she asked in disbelief. "For $125,000, I confirmed. "I don't have," she started. "I don't care," I said. Clyde was reading his papers and said, "Full custody? You're taking Rosie?" "Emergency custody order," I explained. "You get supervised visitation, 2 Saturdays a month." "You can't," he protested. "I already did," I said. "Signed by a judge. You have 48 hours to leave." "This is our house," he argued. Jake's voice cut through sharply. "It's her house. Our parents' house. They left it to her. Your name was never on the title. You've been living in our parents' house with your mistress, planning to steal our parents' legacy. Get out." Melanie was crying as she read her lawsuit and said, "It says I tried to replace you." "You did," I said. "I have the texts, you and Clyde planning the nanny job, discussing taking my house, making Rosie prefer you." "How?" she asked. "Derek sent me everything," I explained. PI report, photos, texts, settlement documents showing Clyde paid him $75,000. Clyde's head snapped up and he asked, "Derek told you?" "3 weeks ago," I said. "But we were careful," he protested. I pulled out my phone and showed them the nanny cam footage, them kissing in the kitchen in my bedroom, discussing their plans in the living room. The audio played. "Just a few more months, and this house is ours." Clyde's face crumpled as he said, "You recorded us?" "In my house," I said. "Legal. Now it's evidence." Melanie sobbed and said, "Please." "You have 48 hours, Clyde," I said firmly. "Melanie, there's a restraining order, 500 feet from me, Rosie, or this house. Violate it and you're arrested." I turned to Jake and said, "Let's go." Jake glared at Clyde one last time and said, 48 hours. We walked to the car and I gripped the steering wheel while Jake asked, "You okay?" "I will be," I said. "You were amazing in there," he said. "I felt like I'd throw up," I admitted. "Didn't show it," he assured me. I looked back through the window where Clyde and Melanie still stood with papers in hand and their lives falling apart. Jake said quietly, "Mom and Dad would be proud. You protected their legacy and protected Rosie." My eyes filled with tears as I said, "I hope so." "I know so," he said. I drove away from my parents' house, the house I'd just saved, heading to my brother's house to get my daughter, knowing that our parents had taken care of both of us, and now we took care of each other. After Clyde was served that Thursday morning, everything moved quickly. He had 48 hours to leave the house, and Jake made sure he was gone by Saturday afternoon. Clyde moved in with a friend temporarily, then eventually moved to another part of Sioux Falls with Melanie. The restraining order against Melanie went into effect immediately, 500 feet from me, Rosie, or the house. She couldn't come to our neighborhood. Couldn't come to Rosie's school, couldn't be anywhere near us. The emergency custody order gave me full custody of Rosie, and Clyde was granted supervised visitation every other Saturday at a court-approved visitation center. He had to pay for the supervision himself, $50 per visit. Child support was set at $400 a month based on his income and the custody arrangement. And then began the 60-day waiting period required by South Dakota law before the divorce could be finalized. Those 60 days were strange. Clyde was gone from the house, gone from our daily lives, but legally we were still married, just separated. Rosie asked questions at first. "When is Daddy coming home? And why doesn't Daddy live here anymore?" And I answered them honestly but gently. I told her that Daddy had made some bad choices, that sometimes grown-ups can't live together anymore, and that it wasn't her fault. She started seeing a therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Coleman who specialized in helping children process divorce and family changes. Slowly, Rosie adjusted to the new normal. Clyde showed up for visitation sometimes, maybe half the time. The other Saturdays, he'd call the visitation center with excuses about being sick or having to work or car trouble. Each time he didn't show up, Rosie would be disappointed, and each time I had to help her process that disappointment. The alienation of affection lawsuit against Melanie moved forward during those 60 days. She couldn't afford an attorney, so she represented herself. The trial happened about 6 weeks into the waiting period, and with Derek's testimony, the PI evidence, the text messages, and my nanny cam footage, the case was overwhelming. The judge awarded me $125,000 in damages, and wage garnishment began immediately. 25% of every paycheck Melanie earned would go toward paying that judgment. I heard that Clyde and Melanie had moved in together in a tiny one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town, both working low-paying jobs and barely scraping by. The romance of the affair had worn off, and they were left with the reality: poverty, debt, and each other. As for me, those 60 days were a time of healing and rebuilding. I threw myself into work and reconnected with old friends. I spent quality time with Rosie, dinners together every night, bedtime stories, weekend trips to Falls Park. I started seeing a therapist too, processing the betrayal, the anger, the grief of losing the marriage I thought I had. And slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Exactly 61 days after filing, the court finalized the divorce. I received the decree in the mail. Divorce finalized. I was no longer married to Clyde Paulson. I was free. It's been 8 months since they were served. 6 months since the divorce was finalized. I have full custody of Rosie. Clyde gets supervised visitation every other Saturday, though he only shows up about half the time. Each missed visit hurts Rosie a little less. She's learning who her father really is. I kept my parents' house debt-free, just like they wanted. I've made it mine again. New paint, new furniture, new memories with Rosie. The judgment against Melanie stands. $125,000. 25% of her paycheck is garnished every month and will be for the next 15 years. Clyde and Melanie are still together in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, barely making ends meet. He makes barely enough freelance income and pays $400 a month in child support, usually late. She works at Target for $11 an hour. After garnishment, she brings home $1,400 a month. Together, they make just enough to survive. Derek told me they fight constantly about money, about whose fault it is, about the life they thought they'd have. Clyde resents Melanie because the affair cost him everything. Melanie resents Clyde because he promised her a better life and delivered poverty. But they can't leave each other. They need both incomes to make rent. They got what they wanted. They're together. But it's not romantic hotels and stolen moments anymore. It's a cramped apartment, dead-end jobs, bill collectors, and garnished wages. The affair that seemed so worth it is now their punishment, and they're trapped. And me? I wake up every morning in my childhood home, the home I protected. Rosie is thriving, on a roll, happy, adjusted. She sees a therapist and understands that Daddy made bad choices, and it's not her fault. My career is better than ever. I'm even dating someone new, someone honest who respects us both. People ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd tried to save the marriage, if I feel bad that Rosie's father is struggling. My answer is always the same: no. Clyde made his choices. The affair, the lies, the plan to take my daughter and my house. I just made sure he faced the consequences. Melanie made her choices too, pursuing a married man, taking a job in his home, trying to replace his wife. They're both facing their consequences. That phone call from Derek didn't destroy my marriage, it saved my life. I could have stayed, believed Clyde's excuses, convinced myself to forgive him for Rosie's sake. But I didn't. I fought back. Now they're trapped in the life they built together, barely surviving, financially ruined. And I'm free. I'm Olivia Paulson, and this is my story. So there's our story for today. Hope you liked seeing justice served. This is Melodic Vengeance. If you want more stories of betrayal, revenge, and people facing the consequences of their actions, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts on Olivia's story. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you at the next one.
If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Don't forget to follow for more content just like this. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.